The room was already quiet when the old man noticed the window. Not open, not closed, just enough space for the curtain to move. It was late enough that the world outside had stopped trying to be loud. No cars, no voices, only the soft, patient sound of air finding its way through the narrow opening. The old man did not stand up right away. He stayed where he was, sitting in the worn wooden chair beside the bed, hands resting gently on his knees, as if the room itself had asked him not to rush. The curtain lifted, then fell, then lifted again. It moved slowly, not because the wind was strong, but because the night had nowhere else to go. He watched it with the kind of attention that only comes after many years of learning that nothing needs to be forced. His breathing followed the movement, and when the curtain rose, out when it settled back down. There was a time when he would have closed the window immediately. A time when silence felt uncomfortable. A time when stillness asked too many questions. But tonight he let it be. The moonlight slipped across the floor, pale and steady, stopping just short of his feet. Dust rested in the air like it had finally decided to stop falling. The old man felt the night gather itself gently around the room, not to take anything away, but to hold it. Somewhere in the distance, something creaked. An old sound, familiar, like a house remembering itself. He smiled just slightly. This is how it always begins, he thought. Not with a thought that demands attention, but with one that simply arrives. The window, the curtain, the quiet, none of them were asking him to do anything. They were only inviting him to notice. He leaned back, the chair responding with a soft sound of age and use. The room accepted his weight easily, as if it already knew him. Outside, the night continued doing what it does best, moving slowly, carefully, without needing to explain itself. The old man closed his eyes for a moment. Not to sleep. Not yet. Just to listen. And as the curtain moved once more, carrying the night's breath into the room, the story began, without effort, without hurry, exactly the way it always should. The old man opened his eyes again. Nothing had changed, and yet everything felt slightly closer. The curtain moved once more. Slower now, as if the night itself had taken a careful breath. The air touched his face gently, cool, clean, carrying no scent except the quiet promise of rest. He did not move. Years ago, he had learned something important. When the night brings a moment like this, it is better to receive it than interrupt it. The chair beneath him creaked softly, not in protest, but in recognition. This chair had listened to many nights like this, nights where time loosened its grip and allowed memories to drift without sharp edges. The old man's gaze rested on the dark space beyond the window. It wasn't empty. It was waiting. Somewhere outside, a branch shifted. Somewhere farther still, a sound faded before it fully formed. The world was not asleep. It was simply speaking more quietly now. He noticed how his shoulders had lowered without effort. His hands rested open, palms warm, fingers relaxed. Even his thoughts seemed to slow, lining up instead of colliding. This was the hour he trusted the most. Not morning with its demands. Not afternoon with its noise. Not evening with its unfinished business. This hour asked for nothing. The curtain lifted again, just enough to let moonlight slide across the wall. It traced familiar shapes, the edge of a shelf, the corner of an old photograph frame, the outline of a life that had already proven it could endure. The old man remembered sitting in this same room long ago, when the window was newer and his reflection in the glass felt unfamiliar. Back then, silence had felt too wide, too open. Now it fit perfectly. He leaned his head slightly to one side, listening, not for a sound but for a feeling. And there it was, the quiet certainty that the night knew what it was doing. Outside, the wind paused. Inside, his breathing slowed further, matching the steady patience of the dark. The curtain settled, finally resting, as if it had finished saying what it needed to say. The old man did not close the window. He had learned that some things should remain just a little open, because what followed, what always followed, came only when the room felt safe enough to listen. And the night, satisfied, continued deeper, bringing with it the next memory, the next calm unfolding already on its way. The room held its breath, not because something was about to happen, but because nothing needed to. The old man remained still, his body understanding before his mind did that this was a moment meant to last. The chair supported him without complaint, as if it too had decided to stay awake a little longer. The window stood open just enough. Air moved through the room in soft waves, brushing the edge of the curtain, then retreating. Each movement was gentle, unhurried, like a thought that didn't need to be finished. The old man's eyes followed the slow dance of shadow and light along the wall. He noticed details he rarely named, the faint mark near the corner, the way the wall changed color where years of evening light had passed again and again. This room had watched him grow quieter. It remembered his voice from long ago, louder, quicker, full of plans that stretched far beyond the window. It remembered nights when sleep refused to come, when silence felt heavy instead of kind. But tonight was different. Tonight the silence rested easily. He shifted slightly, not to adjust, but to settle. His back relaxed further, shoulders sinking into a place they had been searching for all day. His breathing found a rhythm so steady it no longer needed attention. Outside, the night continued its slow work. A distant sound appeared and disappeared without explanation. Somewhere, something moved, then stopped. The world was rearranging itself gently, piece by piece, without asking anyone to notice. The old man smiled, not because of a thought, but because of a feeling. A simple one, a quiet one. He realized that the room was doing something rare. It was holding him, not tightly, not urgently, just enough. The curtain lifted again, this time catching more light. The moon traced a pale line across the floor, stopping near his feet, as if marking a boundary the night had no intention of crossing. He remembered standing in moonlight once long ago, when time felt endless and rest felt unnecessary. The memory arrived without sharpness, without regret. It passed through him like the breeze, acknowledged, then released. That was new. He no longer chased memories. He allowed them. The window frame creaked softly, a sound so familiar it felt reassuring. This house had its own language, spoken only at hours like this, when everything else grew quiet enough to hear it. The old man listened. Not with effort, not with curiosity, but with trust. His eyes grew heavier, though they did not close yet. There was no rush. The night had plenty of space, plenty of patience. The room remained unchanged, and yet it felt fuller now, as if something unseen had taken a seat nearby, content to simply share the silence. The old man stayed where he was, because he knew what came next did not arrive quickly. It arrived gently, and it was already closer than it seemed. The night did not move forward. It widened. The old man noticed this without thinking it through. Time, which usually pressed and pulled, had loosened its grip. Moments were no longer stacked in a line. They spread out gently, like a quiet lake under moonlight. He rested deeper into the chair. Not falling, not drifting. Just being. His hands lay open on his lap, fingers relaxed in a way they rarely were during the day. There was nothing left to hold, nothing left to prepare for. The night had already accepted him as he was. The curtain stirred again, slower now. Each movement felt deliberate, as if the air itself was careful not to disturb the peace it had helped create. The old man listened to his own breathing. It surprised him how soft it sounded. Once, breath had been something he controlled. Fast when life demanded speed, shallow when worry took over. Tonight, it moved on its own, deep and untroubled, like it remembered how to rest better than he did. The room responded, Shadows softened at the edges. Corners seemed less sharp. Even the silence felt warmer, no longer empty but filled with a kind of quiet understanding. He became aware of how little effort it took to stay awake, and how little effort it would take to let go, but still he remained. Because this space, this exact moment, felt complete. Nothing needed to be added, nothing needed to be taken away. Outside, the night continued its slow breathing. A distant sound rose briefly, then faded, leaving no trace behind. The world was awake somewhere, but far enough away to feel harmless. The old man's thoughts grew lighter. They no longer formed sentences. They no longer searched for meaning. They drifted like reflections on glass, present then gone. A faint memory appeared. A window like this one many years ago. Different house, different night. The same moon, patient as ever. The memory did not demand attention. It simply passed through, leaving behind a feeling rather than a story. That was enough. His eyelids lowered, then lifted again, not from resistance, but from habit, the body checking in, making sure it was safe to rest. It was. The chair creaked softly as he shifted a fraction, settling into a position that felt almost perfectly balanced between waking and sleep. A place he rarely visited, where time felt suspended. The room held steady. Nothing changed. Nothing needed to. The moonlight shifted just slightly, tracing a slower path now, as if even it had decided to linger. The pale glow touched the edge of the old man's sleeve, then moved on. He exhaled. Long, unforced. In that breath, something loosened, something carried for years without being noticed. It did not leave all at once. It softened first, then slowly faded. The night made room for this. The room remained quiet but alive, and the old man stayed exactly where he was, knowing without words that the next moment would come when it was ready. Not before. Not after. Just gently. The old man did not notice when his thoughts became quieter. There was no clear moment. No signal. Just a gentle thinning, like fog lifting without being told. He remained seated, but the sense of sitting slowly disappeared. The chair still held him, yet his awareness no longer rested on it. Instead, it hovered softly in the space around him, near the window, near the curtain, near the slow-moving light. The night felt wider now, not darker, wider, as if the room had quietly expanded while he wasn't paying attention. The curtain moved again, barely this time. It no longer fluttered. It breathed. In and out. In and out. The rhythm matched something inside him. Something older than memory. His chest rose. His chest fell. Each breath felt like it belonged exactly where it was. There was a time when silence made him restless. When quiet meant waiting or worrying or listening for something to go wrong. Tonight, silence asked nothing from him. It simply stayed. A faint warmth settled through his shoulders, traveling downward at an unhurried pace. Muscles that had stayed tight out of habit began to release, not all at once, but in small permissions. You can rest now. You don't have to hold this. The message did not come as words. It arrived as a feeling, steady, patient, kind. The old man's face softened. Lines shaped by years of effort eased, just slightly. His jaw unclenched, his brow smoothed, as if remembering a younger version of itself. The moonlight slipped farther across the floor, stretching into a long, pale shape. It no longer drew attention to itself. It simply existed, like everything else in the room. His thoughts became fragments. A sound without a source. A color without a name. A sense of familiarity without a reason. Each fragment drifted by and dissolved, leaving no need to follow. For a brief moment he wondered if he was asleep. Then the wondering faded too. The body knew what to do. The chair supported him without complaint. The air wrapped around him evenly, neither cool nor warm, just right. Even gravity seemed gentler, as though it had learned to be careful tonight. Somewhere far away, time continued to move forward. Clocks turned, lights flicked on and off, but none of that reached this room. Here, time had learned to slow its voice. The old man's breathing deepened further, settling into a rhythm that felt ancient and familiar. Each exhale carried away something unnecessary. Each inhale arrived already calm. He did not think about tomorrow. He did not think about yesterday. Those ideas felt too sharp for a night like this. Instead, he rested in the quiet space between thoughts, a place that asked for nothing and offered rest in return. The curtain stilled completely. The room held its breath, and the old man remained, balanced gently between waking and sleep, knowing without knowing that the night would carry him wherever he needed to go, slowly,
safely,
without effort. The old man did not move, yet something inside him shifted. It was not a thought, not a decision. It was the body quietly taking over. His breathing slowed further, stretching each moment longer than the one before. The space between inhale and exhale widened, becoming soft and comfortable, like a pause that felt safe. The weight of his arms grew heavier, not uncomfortable, just deeply relaxed. Gravity pressed them gently into place, reminding him that he did not need to hold himself up anymore. The chair was doing that now. His legs rested exactly where they were, no urge to adjust, no need to reposition. Even the smallest muscles, the ones that usually stayed alert without reason, finally released their watch. There was no danger here, no urgency, no task waiting to be completed. The room seemed to understand. The walls stood quietly, unmoving and patient. The floor held steady beneath everything it supported. The ceiling did not press down. It simply hovered above, distant and unconcerned. The old man's awareness drifted lower, sinking gently into his chest, then into his stomach, then down through his legs. Each place it passed softened, as if being noticed was permission enough to relax. A subtle warmth spread outward, slow and even. It felt like being wrapped, not tightly, but securely, like a blanket that had been there so long it no longer felt separate from the body. The curtain stirred once more, just a whisper of movement. The sound was barely there, yet it carried comfort, a reminder that the world was still breathing, still alive, still calm. His eyelids, already heavy, grew heavier still, not closing completely, not opening either, resting in that in-between state where effort no longer mattered. Images began to form, faint and unfocused. Not memories, not dreams, just gentle impressions. A long path without an end, a light that did not blind. A feeling of being carried without moving. Each impression floated by slowly, dissolving before it could become clear. There was no need to understand them. Understanding belonged to daytime. Night asked only for presence. The old man's face showed no expression now. It did not need one. His body had entered a deeper agreement with rest, one that did not require permission or explanation. Somewhere beyond the window, the night continued its quiet work, cooling the air, dimming the world, softening edges. Inside the room, everything followed its lead. Breath in, pause, breath out. Each cycle felt complete, as if nothing else needed to be added. The sense of self, the idea of I, grew lighter. Not gone, just distant. Like a name heard from another room. Familiar but unimportant. The old man remained. Not thinking. Not listening. Not waiting. Simply resting in the steady rhythm of being alive. And as the night held him there gently and without demand, the space between moments grew wider still, ready to carry him deeper whenever he was ready. Nothing changed in the room, and yet everything felt different. The old man's breathing had become so gentle that it barely seemed to move his chest. It was there, steady and calm, but no longer demanded attention. It simply happened, the way night happens without asking permission. His body felt distant now, not because it was gone, but because it no longer needed supervision. Muscles rested in their natural position, neither tense nor loose, just exactly where they belonged. Time softened. Seconds no longer marched forward. They stretched, blurred, and quietly dissolved into one another. There was no clear beginning to a moment, and no obvious end. The old man's awareness drifted again, this time not downward, but outward. It expanded gently, filling the space around him. The chair, the floor, the walls, everything felt connected by the same calm presence. There was no edge between where he ended and the room began. The faint sound of the curtain returned, slower now, as if the night itself was moving more carefully. Each small movement carried reassurance, like a signal that all was well. His mind did not chase the sound. It did not label it. It simply allowed it to pass through. Thoughts tried to appear briefly, unfinished fragments, half-formed ideas, but they faded before becoming solid. There was no grip, no effort to hold on to them. And without effort, they had no reason to stay. A deep stillness settled behind his eyes, a quiet space beneath thinking itself. It felt wide and open, like standing in a field at night where the sky stretches endlessly overhead. In that space, nothing was required. No memories to sort, no plans to prepare, no identity to maintain, just a soft awareness, floating gently, supported by the rhythm of breath and the steady calm of the room. The old man's face remained peaceful, untouched by emotion. Not happy, not sad, simply neutral, like water at rest. Warmth gathered again, this time deeper, spreading slowly from his chest toward his hands and feet. It was not heat, but comfort, the kind that signals safety without words. Outside the window, the night continued its quiet routine. Somewhere far away, the world still moved, but it did not reach this room. The room was protected by silence, wrapped in a softness that absorbed everything sharp. The old man no longer felt the need to follow time. He did not wonder how long he had been sitting there. He did not wonder what would happen next. The idea of next had lost its meaning. Breath flowed. Pause followed. Release came naturally. Each cycle felt like a gentle wave, lifting him slightly, then setting him down again, lower than before. Deeper into stillness, deeper into rest. Awareness dimmed at the edges, not suddenly, but gradually, like a light being turned down slowly, so the eyes never strained. Nothing pulled him back. Nothing pushed him forward. He simply remained suspended in that quiet beneath thought, where effort ends and rest begins on its own. The room seemed to breathe with him now. Not loudly, not noticeably. Just enough to be felt. The old man's body had settled into a state so comfortable that it no longer sent signals upward. No reminders, no small adjustments, no need to move. His shoulders rested completely, as if they had finally been given permission to stop holding the weight of years. The spine aligned itself without effort, finding a balance that required nothing in return. Even his hands, resting quietly, felt heavier, pleasantly so. Fingers curved naturally, loose and warm, as though sleep had already begun to borrow them. The breath continued its slow pattern, but now it felt deeper, fuller. Each inhale arrived softly, expanding the chest just enough, and each exhale melted away without resistance. Between breaths there was space. Not empty space, but gentle space. A pause that felt safe. A pause that did not rush to end. The old man drifted further into that pause, noticing how the mind no longer tried to fill it. Silence had become familiar, comforting. Images flickered briefly, soft, undefined shapes like shadows behind closed eyelids, but they carried no meaning. They did not ask to be understood. They passed like clouds in a dark sky. The curtain by the window barely moved now. The air had calmed, as if the night itself had decided to rest. With that stillness came a deeper sense of protection, as though nothing could disturb this moment. The old man's jaw loosened slightly. The muscles around his mouth softened, releasing the last trace of tension. His expression remained peaceful, untouched by thought. Awareness sank lower, settling not in the head, but somewhere behind the chest. A quiet center where sensation existed without interpretation. There was no desire to think, no effort to remember, no urge to control, just a gentle presence, steady and unchanging. Time thinned even more. What once felt like minutes now felt like nothing at all. The idea of counting became irrelevant. The body felt supported by the chair, by the floor beneath it, by the unseen stillness surrounding everything. Gravity no longer pulled, it held. Warmth spread again, this time slow and even, like a blanket being placed carefully over the entire body. Nothing was left uncovered. The old man no longer felt separate from rest. Rest was not something approaching. It was already here. Breath after breath, awareness dimmed slightly, not fading away, but becoming quieter, less defined. The edges of sensation softened, blending together into one continuous calm. There was no moment to mark as the beginning of sleep. Only a gradual easing, a gentle surrender, a peaceful allowing. The night did not hurry him. The room did not ask anything of him. And as the old man remained there, floating between awareness and rest, the silence deepened, ready to guide him even further without ever needing to speak. The old man no longer noticed where his body ended and the room began. There was no clear boundary now, no sharp awareness of skin or fabric or air. Everything felt blended, softened into one continuous sensation of quiet presence. His breathing had become so gentle that it barely seemed like movement at all. The chest rose and fell in a way that felt automatic, distant, as if the body had taken over completely and no longer needed observation. Each breath flowed in on its own and flowed out without leaving a trace. The mind rested somewhere deep, far from words. Thoughts did not form sentences anymore. They appeared as faint impressions, slow, weightless, and quickly dissolving. Nothing stayed long enough to matter. The old man felt a subtle heaviness behind his eyes, a pleasant pressure that invited them to remain closed. Darkness behind the eyelids felt warm, layered, and calm, like velvet curtains drawn gently shut. In that darkness there was no urgency, no direction, no expectation, just a steady drifting, like floating on still water at night. The room remained quiet. The window stood unmoving now, the curtain resting as if it too had fallen asleep. Outside sounds, if they existed at all, felt impossibly far away, too distant to reach him. His body sank a little deeper into its support, not physically moving but settling inward. Muscles no longer held themselves. They simply existed, loose and unbothered. The hands felt far away now. So did the feet. Even the sense of posture faded. Awareness narrowed, not sharply, but softly, like a light dimmed until only a gentle glow remained. Time lost its structure completely. There was no before, no after. Only this slow, continuous moment that stretched without resistance. The old man did not wonder whether he was awake or asleep. The question itself felt unnecessary. There was comfort in not knowing, comfort in letting the distinction disappear. A deep calm spread through the center of his body, steady and reassuring. It did not rise or fall. It simply stayed, like a quiet presence watching over everything without interfering. Breathing continued. The heart continued. But they no longer demanded attention. Even the sense of listening softened. Sounds were no longer separate events. Silence itself felt like the dominant force, thick and protective. If a thought tried to appear, it slipped away before forming shape, like mist dissolving before sunrise. The old man remained suspended in this gentle state where nothing needed to be done and nothing could go wrong. Rest was no longer something approaching. It had wrapped itself around him completely. And as this calm deepened, as awareness grew even quieter and more distant, the night seemed to lean closer, ready to carry him further, without effort, without interruption. The old man felt as if he were slowly being guided downward, not falling, not sinking suddenly, but gently lowered into a deeper layer of rest. There was no fear in this movement, only trust. His breathing had become so subtle it felt more like a rhythm than an action. Each inhale arrived softly, each exhale faded away without effort, like a wave that never quite reaches shore. The space around him felt distant now. The room no longer had edges. Walls, ceiling, and floor seemed to dissolve into a single dark softness. Awareness narrowed further, but in a comforting way, like settling into a familiar place where nothing unexpected could happen. The old man's thoughts had thinned to almost nothing. They were no longer stories or memories, just faint flickers, barely noticeable, drifting past and disappearing before they could take shape. His forehead felt smooth. The jaw loosened completely. The tongue rested naturally with no tension at all. Every muscle had found permission to stop holding. The sensation of weight increased slightly, as if gravity itself had become kinder, steady, supportive, and warm. The body felt safely anchored, even as the mind drifted freely. There was a quiet pull now, like being drawn deeper into stillness. Not forced, not rushed, just invited. Time had lost all meaning. Minutes did not pass, seconds did not tick. The moment simply continued wide and open without markers. The old man did not try to follow his breath anymore. It existed on its own, perfectly capable, perfectly calm. Even awareness of the breath faded in and out. In this state, the mind did not search for anything. There was no need to understand, no need to remember, no need to anticipate, only a deep, comfortable neutrality. The darkness behind the eyes felt thicker now, layered and smooth. It felt like drifting deeper into a soft, endless night that held no surprises. If any sound reached him, it arrived muffled and distant, stripped of meaning. Silence remained the dominant presence, wide, gentle, and complete. The old man's sense of self softened further. He was no longer thinking, "I am resting." Rest simply was. A subtle warmth spread through his chest and abdomen, slow and even, like a quiet reassurance that everything was exactly as it should be. There was nothing left to adjust, nothing left to release. Even the idea of effort had disappeared. This was not the edge of sleep. It was the interior of it, a place where awareness floats quietly, neither fully awake nor fully gone, safe, suspended, and deeply at ease. And as the night continued to hold him in this calm, steady state, the pull downward remained, gentle, patient, and endless, ready to carry him even deeper, without sound, without thought, without interruption. The old man drifted deeper, into a place where awareness no longer needed to stay sharp. It softened like a light dimmed slowly, not switched off, just lowered until it blended with the darkness around it. His body felt distant now, present but no longer demanding attention. Arms, legs, shoulders, all of them rested quietly, as if they had been placed somewhere safe and forgotten in the best possible way. Breathing continued, calm and steady, but it no longer felt connected to thought. It happened on its own, guided by something older and wiser than the mind. The space behind his closed eyes felt vast, not empty, full but without detail. A smooth, endless dark where nothing needed to appear. Thoughts tried to form once or twice, but they dissolved before becoming clear. They were like mist touched by warm air, quietly gone. The old man did not notice them leave. There was a sense of floating now, gentle and stable. Not upward, not downward. Simply suspended in a state where movement had lost meaning. The concept of time faded even more. There was no earlier moment, no later one, just a continuous now that stretched without effort. His face remained relaxed. No expression, no tension, no signal of alertness. Even the small muscles around the eyes had fully released. The mind stopped checking itself. There was no question of "am I asleep yet?" That question no longer existed. Instead, there was a soft neutrality, a state where nothing needed to be changed because nothing was wrong. The darkness became warmer, almost comforting. It felt layered, like being wrapped gently from all sides without pressure. If the world still existed beyond this moment, it felt very far away. Safe, distant, unimportant. The old man's awareness narrowed further, but not sharply. It folded inward, slowly, like fabric settling into a natural shape. No effort guided this process. No intention. It simply happened. Any remaining tension in the neck, the spine, the lower back eased away, leaving behind a sensation of complete support, as if the surface beneath him understood exactly how to hold him. Breathing grew quieter still. Sometimes it felt as if it paused, but it never did. It was just so smooth, so shallow, that it blended perfectly into stillness. In this place, nothing asked for attention. Nothing demanded response. Awareness hovered gently, then dipped, then hovered again, each time returning softer than before. Sleep was no longer approaching. Sleep was already here. Not the kind that erases everything at once, but the deep kind that welcomes the mind slowly, patiently, without interruption. The night held the old man in this softened state, allowing him to drift without direction, without thought, without concern. And as this calm continued, awareness became lighter, quieter, thinner, ready to fade even more, guided only by comfort, silence, and rest. The night wrapped around him like a soft cloth, thick yet unnoticeable, filling every corner without pressing. It was complete, calm, and endless. The old man's eyes, closed as always, no longer registered light or shadow. His gaze had turned inward, softly observing the stillness around him. Time had stopped, yet he felt the slow rhythm of life itself. Breath after breath moved naturally, fading into one another. Occasionally, a tiny shift in air brushed past him, but it no longer mattered. Body and mind surrendered to the quiet. Memories drifted by, faint voices, smells, fleeting moments, watched like clouds across a fogged sky. No attachment, no judgment, only observation. Outside, the trees held their place perfectly, their patience mirrored in the calm settling in his bones. Nothing hurried, nothing demanded attention. All was as it should be. His hands rested, relaxed, palms up. The bench and earth supported him fully. Even the dark sky above did not press down. A distant sound came, perhaps a step or door, but it faded, meaningless. Inside, the mind slowed. Thoughts arrived and paused, then spaced further apart until they stopped. Awareness softened, weightless. The world folded inward, self-folded inward. Sleep had not claimed him yet, but it approached gently, unhurried. Heart, muscles, bones, all aligned in perfect calm. Existence itself was peace. Even curiosity faded, carried by the patient night. Quiet became a pulse beneath all things, guiding him toward rest without effort. The night no longer felt like a blanket. It was a companion, silent and steady. The old man remained seated, still, neither moving nor needing to. The bench beneath him seemed as much a part of him as his own body. The air carried no sound but a gentle hum, almost imagined, like the distant heartbeat of the earth. His thoughts, once a river of memories and worries, had thinned to a gentle stream. He did not follow them, did not resist them. They simply passed. Every leaf, every branch of the trees outside stood in quiet balance. The faint rustle of wind had slowed, as if the world itself had paused to breathe. Even the stars, barely visible through the night, held still in their cold silence. His hands rested loosely in his lap. Fingers curled slightly, soft, unstrained. No action was required. Each breath settled deeper, a rhythm older than time. Far away, a sound might have existed once, a door, a distant animal, perhaps a voice, but distance carried it away. It could not reach him here. He was surrounded only by stillness, a presence that needed nothing from him. A soft warmth spread through his chest. It was not comfort in the usual sense. It was something deeper, a quiet recognition that everything, even him, was held. Layers of support, invisible yet undeniable, extended through space and time. He did not seek sleep. He did not push it away. It came closer naturally, not as an arrival, but as a subtle spreading of calm. The bench, the ground, the night, the stars, all conspired to carry him gently toward it. Time no longer mattered. Minutes and hours had become meaningless markers. Only this quiet patient now existed. Thoughts, sounds, sensations, they all blended into the same gentle tide. Even as awareness ebbed, there was no fear. The old man simply rested in the unfolding stillness, letting each moment arrive and pass, soft as a sigh, wide as the night itself. The night carried a soft whisper, though it was no voice he could hear. It was the hush of leaves, the distant brush of wind, the subtle pressure of darkness pressing gently against the edges of his awareness. The old man did not stir. He did not need to. Shadows lay across the ground like slow rivers of ink. Each one moved imperceptibly, as if time itself were breathing softly. Nothing demanded attention, and the mind, unburdened, drifted lightly between perception and rest. His eyes, half closed, caught the faint glimmer of the moon. The silver light traced the contours of the trees, the bench, the earth beneath him. He noticed, without noticing, the way one notices the presence of a distant memory, familiar yet ungraspable. A single leaf trembled, lifted by the night's gentle breath. The old man's fingers twitched ever so slightly, a response not to thought but to the rhythm of being. Every part of him existed in quiet harmony with the stillness around him. Somewhere far away, perhaps beyond sight or sound, a distant sound might have existed once. A bird, a door closing, the faint shuffle of human life, but it could not reach him. Not here. Here, the night held everything in place, leaving no gaps for worry, for desire, for memory. He did not attempt to remember, to imagine, to escape. There was no need. The night, the air, the earth, and the bench beneath him were enough. Every breath was a tide, pulling and releasing, a quiet melody that needed no composer. He let the darkness surround him. Not oppressive, not frightening, but full, complete, soft, and patient. His heart no longer marked time. It only flowed, steady and silent, like the earth itself. And in that stillness, he was not alone. The night's presence was a gentle companion, holding him with patience older than thought. There was nothing to do, nowhere to go, no need for anything but the slow unfolding of this quiet. The world outside could wait. There was only now, a vast, soft expanse where each breath, each twitch of the leaves, each ripple of shadow was part of the same infinite calm. The old man felt the breeze as if it carried stories from far away, though no words were spoken. It brushed lightly against his cheeks, tugged at the edges of his coat, and danced through the trees like invisible fingers tracing patterns across the night. Each movement of the wind seemed deliberate, as if the night itself were breathing. Leaves rustled softly, creating a rhythm that mingled with his own steady breaths. He noticed this harmony without thought, without effort, just being, simple and complete. Shadows stretched and folded over the ground, cast by the pale moonlight above. They moved imperceptibly, like gentle waves of darkness sliding over the contours of the earth. Nothing intruded here. Nothing demanded attention. The old man's hands rested on his knees, loose, calm. Fingers occasionally flexed, responding to the subtle currents of air. The bench beneath him was solid, the earth beneath the bench firmer still. Each layer of support reminded him that he was held, even when the world beyond the trees moved on without him. A distant sound, perhaps a door closing or a faint bird's call, was swallowed before it reached his ears. The night had its own pace, one that did not hurry or pause, one that simply existed, vast and gentle. The stars above shimmered faintly, their light neither bright nor demanding. The old man's gaze followed them in a slow drift, like floating along a river with no beginning and no end. There was no past calling, no future awaiting him. Only the present, soft and endless. Breath after breath, the rhythm deepened. The tide of night, the pull of wind, the gentle sway of leaves, it all became part of a single unbroken motion. The old man did not think of sleep, nor of waking. He was simply held by this quiet, and it was enough. Time softened further, stretching and folding like the shadows beneath the trees. The night did not hurry, did not rush. It lingered, patient and steady, as if it had been waiting for him all along. And in that waiting, in that gentle, unbroken stillness, he found a presence deeper than thought, wider than the sky. A peace so subtle it almost went unnoticed, yet profound enough to fill the spaces where rest and life entwined. The night seemed to lean closer now, folding itself gently around the old man. The air carried a quiet weight, not pressing, not heavy, but tangible enough to feel like a soft, protective cloak. Every sound of the forest, every rustle of leaf and branch, blended into a single soothing hum that invited him to simply exist. He shifted slightly on the bench, not out of discomfort, but as if acknowledging the rhythm of the night. Fingers lightly touched the smooth wood beneath him, each motion deliberate, careful, mindful. The earth beneath supported everything, the bench, his body, the world itself, and the awareness of that support brought a sense of calm that needed no words. Somewhere far away, a faint owl called, its voice stretching across the darkness. The sound traveled through the still air, fading into silence before reaching his ears, yet its presence was felt. The night carried these distant echoes like gentle reminders that life extended far beyond the immediate, yet remained perfectly in balance here. His eyes, partially closed, traced the outlines of the trees. Their trunks stood like ancient pillars, holding the sky above. Branches swayed softly, as if conversing in a language older than memory. Leaves trembled, catching the faint silver of moonlight, glinting like scattered fragments of quiet thought. The old man did not speak. He did not even think about speaking. Thoughts, when they came, drifted like feathers, soft and light, and then disappeared into the vastness around him. Each one slowed, stretched, and then settled quietly into the rhythm of the night. A gentle breeze moved through the clearing, brushing past his face and carrying with it the faint scent of damp earth. The night smelled alive, yet entirely at peace. Each inhale drew in the serenity. Each exhale released the smallest tension he had not even noticed before. Stars above twinkled softly, their scattered glow casting a calm luminance that seemed to pulse in harmony with his own breathing. Time was no longer a measure, no longer a sequence of moments. It had softened into something like a lullaby, tender, unending, and wholly present. He felt no need to move, no urge to shift, no expectation for what was next. Everything was already here, everything was already enough. The old man rested quietly, fully, while the night whispered its timeless lullabies, gentle, patient, and unwavering. And in that stillness, as the gentle hum of wind, leaves, and distant echoes intertwined, the world narrowed to this single, perfect space. A space where nothing was demanded, nothing was urgent, and yet everything was felt. It was a night without hurry, a breath without end, a moment so complete that it seemed both infinite and intimate, held in the quiet of everything that existed just as it was. The air had grown even quieter now, if that were possible. The old man remained seated on the bench, a figure carved from patience, surrounded by trees that seemed to lean closer in solidarity. Their trunks, wide and steady, held the night above like guardians, and their branches interlaced in a silent, protective embrace. Leaves stirred occasionally, yet without urgency, merely acknowledging the presence of the old man beneath them. He did not reach out, did not try to feel their texture. He only noticed, only observed. Each subtle movement became a language he understood intuitively, like a soft conversation between the earth and the night. Somewhere far off, water moved. Perhaps a stream, a distant river, its soft ripple carried through the stillness. The sound arrived as a suggestion rather than a call, a gentle whisper that faded before it could demand attention. It reminded him that the world extended beyond this small clearing, yet also that the clearing itself was complete. His own hands rested lightly on his knees, each finger loose, each palm warm. There was no tension to release. There was no need to do anything. The night, like an invisible caretaker, held him perfectly, evenly, in its embrace. Moonlight broke through a thin veil of clouds, spilling soft silver across the ground. Shadows of branches danced lightly across the earth, forming shapes that seemed familiar and yet unnamed. The old man's gaze followed them, calm and undistracted, recognizing their quiet poetry without thought or analysis. A faint rustle approached, perhaps a small creature moving through underbrush. He noticed it, but did not react. His awareness was wide enough to encompass these moments without giving any one of them power over him. Each sound, each shimmer of light, became part of a rhythm that was larger than him yet intimately his to inhabit. Time had softened completely. It no longer measured itself in minutes or hours, but in breaths, in gentle pauses, in moments that lingered without demanding recognition. Each moment bled seamlessly into the next, forming a tapestry of stillness that was neither empty nor stagnant. Even the air itself seemed aware of its role, moving with patience and care, ensuring that nothing hurried, nothing disturbed the fragile perfection of this night. In this space, the old man felt no separation from the world around him. He was both observer and participant, a quiet node in the pulse of the night. And so he sat, fully present, the bench beneath him solid, the ground beneath it firmer still, and the trees above forming an invisible cathedral, each one watching, each one knowing, each one silent, yet expressive. The night carried on, infinite and gentle, and in that infinite, gentle night, the old man found a peace that asked for nothing and offered everything. The night deepened further, folding the world into a blanket of muted shadows. The old man remained on his bench, rooted yet light, as if the earth had quietly asked him to stay, and he had agreed. The trees around him stood silently, their trunks like ancient columns, and the leaves whispered a song only the wind could carry. Far off, he imagined a river moving slowly through the darkness. Its sound was faint, like a soft exhale, barely more than a suggestion. He did not need to see it. The sound alone painted a picture in his mind of water gliding over smooth stones, glinting under the moon's soft glow. The bench supported him evenly. The ground supported the bench. The earth supported all. Layers of quiet stacked perfectly, each one offering comfort, each one insisting on nothing. He did not move his hands. Fingers rested loosely on his knees. Palms were warm, steady, patient. Time had become gentle. It no longer pressed forward, nor did it retreat. Moments arrived and lingered, like light spilling across still water. Nothing demanded attention. Nothing called for action. Each sound, each rustle, each distant echo blended into a calm rhythm that asked nothing from him. A faint scent of damp earth rose with the night air. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it carried weight, connecting him to the living world around him. His mind acknowledged it briefly, then allowed it to settle back into the quiet. There was no effort, no intention, just presence. The moonlight traced patterns through the branches, dappling the ground in shifting silver. Shadows moved without urgency, forming shapes that felt familiar yet undefined. His gaze followed them without thought, accepting them simply as they were, as if the night itself had painted these patterns for no one in particular. Somewhere, a leaf fell. The soft sound of its landing was absorbed by the night. He noticed it, yet there was no reaction. His awareness was broad, encompassing, unhurried. Each detail existed, yet none commanded him. The night continued its slow, careful breathing, and he breathed along with it. Even the distant river seemed to acknowledge the calm. Its whispers blended with the gentle sigh of leaves, forming a melody that asked nothing and gave everything. In this melody, the old man was both listener and note, inseparable yet unnoticed, fully present yet entirely at ease. And as the night carried on, uninterrupted and complete, He felt a subtle fullness in the quiet. Not a fullness that weighed, but one that allowed him to simply be. And that was enough. The night had softened into a slow, steady rhythm, one that required no attention, no effort, no thought. The old man sat quietly on the bench, his back straight yet relaxed, his hands resting on his knees. Each breath moved in and out, unnoticed yet measured, like the gentle tide of a river far away. Around him, the world was alive in subtle ways. Leaves shifted slightly with the faintest breeze, brushing against each other with sounds that were more felt than heard. The shadows stretched across the ground, thin and soft, never sharp, never demanding. Each shape seemed deliberate yet effortless, as if the night itself had arranged them with care. In the distance, a soft glow appeared, perhaps a street lamp, perhaps moonlight filtered through clouds. It cast a gentle illumination across the path ahead, revealing nothing in particular but suggesting everything might be possible. The old man's eyes followed it without thinking, taking in the glow as it traveled slowly across the ground. The air carried faint scents, damp earth, a hint of flowers long past, the cool freshness of the night. Each note of fragrance touched him lightly, settling in his memory like a soft echo, present yet fleeting. He did not seek them. They simply arrived and lingered. Somewhere far away, a bird stirred. Perhaps it had been asleep. Perhaps it had only just emerged. Its call was low and distant, barely breaking the silence. The old man acknowledged it, not with words or thought, but with a quiet nod of existence, a recognition that life continued quietly all around him. The bench seemed to hold him as carefully as he held himself. He did not shift. He did not fidget. Even the ground beneath the bench felt supportive, solid, yet forgiving. The connection between earth, bench, and body was seamless, invisible, profound. Time had no edges. Past and future existed only as soft impressions. There was no need to chase them. Each moment stretched and blended into the next, forming a continuum of calm. The old man's mind, usually busy with thought and memory, now simply mirrored the stillness around him. The soft glow shifted again, illuminating the trunks of the nearby trees, the texture of the bark, the gentle sway of low branches. Each detail became part of a silent rhythm, a language of subtle movements and quiet light. He noticed them without focus, accepting them as part of the whole, and as he sat there, wrapped in the soft glow of night, a quiet understanding filled him. Not an understanding of answers or solutions, but a recognition of the world as it was, gentle, patient, and complete. And that, more than anything, was enough.
The night had settled completely now. The old man remained on the bench, a still figure wrapped in the calm that had grown around him like a soft blanket. Each breath continued, steady, unhurried, neither shallow nor deep, simply flowing as it always would. There was no urgency, no need for movement, no pull of thought demanding attention. Around him the world had quieted almost to nothingness. The trees held their silent vigil, their leaves barely stirring, each branch patient, each shadow stretching long and gentle across the soft earth. Even the air seemed to pause, thick yet delicate, carrying no sound but itself. The glow from a distant lamp or perhaps a sliver of moon illuminated the path ahead, soft and even. It did not guide. It merely existed, bathing the world in a quiet certainty. The old man's eyes rested upon it, neither searching nor judging, simply witnessing. Each shape, each flicker of light, each subtle sway in the night, became a note in a slow, unspoken rhythm. Time had lost its meaning. There was no past demanding review, no future waiting to be reached. Moments were not counted. They were simply present, lying beside one another like stones on damp soil, solid, silent, and complete. The old man's hands rested lightly on his knees, fingers relaxed, neither fidgeting nor tense. His body understood the stillness better than the mind ever could. Somewhere far away, perhaps a distant door, a voice, or a gentle rustle existed, but it mattered little. Distance had carried it away, and it became part of the quiet that filled the night. Silence was no longer empty. It was full, complete, unbroken. The bench beneath him, the earth beneath it, and the sky above all seemed to converge, forming a seamless support, a soft cradle that held him gently. He did not need to move. He did not need to act. All that existed was the quiet acceptance of being. As he breathed in and out, he felt time spread wide rather than flow forward. Life, in its simplest form, was present in each moment. The night wrapped him completely, without edges, without pressure. Darkness was no longer distant. It was surrounding, embracing, holding everything in its even arms. The old man did not chase thoughts. He did not push them away. They slowed, paused, and faded into nothing, leaving only a gentle stillness. And in that stillness he found comfort, deep, infinite, unspoken, and enough. No past asked for reckoning. No future demanded arrival. There was only the present, the quiet, the soft glow, and the gentle rhythm of breath. And in this serene embrace he remained completely, utterly, peacefully, until the night itself seemed to sigh and settle around him, and everything was exactly as it was meant to be. And that was the end.